In life, not everything will go according to plan. It is no fairy tale where you will have a simple, happy end, and neither will you have a clear-cut journey to said end. You will struggle and continue to struggle. But at the end of each hardship, you will grow as a person in some way. Through each hardship, you will gain clarity. Jin, too, goes through plenty of hardship when he has to face off against the absolute beating you will get at the hands of some bird cultist. Hey, wait a minute. Iki Island is a DLC to the base game that will just give you more of the same Ghost of Tsushima goodness. You like that? You will like this too. It is essentially just the base game dialed up to 11 in terms of combat, difficulty, and art direction. The plot starts in the second act of the base game, where you will find a small outpost of Mongols who aren't part of Khotun Khan's invasion fleet, with a few people who have gone insane nearby. You of course can play the DLC after you have finished the base game. It is the way I did it, and quite honestly I would highly recommend doing so, because the enemies on that island got hands. Plus, I kind of feel like the things that are said over the course of the plot of the expansion have more impact if you have finished the main plot of the base game. And before I forget, this is your spoiler warning for the Iki Island DLC. I'll talk about the entire DLC story, optional reveals, enemies, and so on and so forth. We good? Let's continue then. Upon finding out about the small outpost of a yet unknown Mongol faction who used a quote-unquote sacred medicine on villagers who then went absolutely insane, Jin knew that this new threat needed to be stopped before it could grow out of control. He learns that this eagle tribe is wreaking havoc on Iki, the island on which his father was murdered in front of him. The place that hammered home Jin's belief that samurai should help those who cannot help themselves. With the threat now clear, you immediately depart to Iki Island and immediately have your ship destroyed by a storm that separates you from your horse. The worry is tangible in Jin's voice. Not only does he need Kaze to get to places quickly, but he also cherishes him like a member of his family. And with the memory of Nobu's death fresh in Jin's mind, he simply cannot let another horse die for his escapades. So you look for your horse, worried he may be hurt. While doing so, you find the captain of your boat, dead on the beach, and bury him. Well, at least I hope you did. And save someone who is weirded out that a samurai would stop to help them. You also kill a monkey. This has no bearing on the story. I just wanted to see if monkeys are lootable. Finally, you find a trail leading to your horse and realize that your horse doesn't have hooves, but instead it has hands, and these Mongols caught every single one of them. Now with your precious little killdozer in tow, you ride off to Fort Sakai, a bastion erected by Jin's father during the invasion of raiders who claimed the island in the past. Sadly, the fort was not simply left alone for all those years. For the Eagle tribe had taken the fort for themselves. Here, you are taken prisoner after being flashbanged with way too many flashbangs and brought before the Eagle herself. She forces Jin to drink the poison, which causes him to hallucinate, which he does not realize at first, which makes me wonder how. Look, Jin is not stupid. He has previously shown the capacity to question things and not take them at face value. So how come he does not question Yuna suddenly saving him and getting him out of there with extreme ease? I don't doubt that Yuna could solo the entire fort. In fact, I think she is just as capable of doing so as Jin is. What I am doubting is the lack of corpses or any Mongol presence aside from the two Mongols at the entrance of the tent. Where are they, Jin? They wouldn't leave you this undefended, especially not with these horrific murder machines around. So after Jin essentially spills his entire plan to the Eagle and is kicked off a platform, the first vision in a line of visions is triggered, of Jin reliving the trauma of his father's death, with the Eagle talking mad shit in the background. Something worth noting is that while the Eagle's voice is constantly just making Jin doubt himself, Kazumasa's voice, who's his father, is both a mix of memories and guiding words aiding him in one way or another. It is at this point that Jin's journey through what honestly feels like an unending mental suffering begins. Throughout the entire expansion, Jin will be haunted by audible and at times visual hallucinations of things he experienced both in the past and present. We already experienced one in which Kazumasa Sakai's memory aids you in escaping from the talons of the Eagle tribe, alongside the voice of the eagle talking mad shit. But you can also find optional flashbacks to the time during the invasion which explore various aspects of how it felt like to Jin to be there. So let's begin with the optional memories first, because I'm sure you guys may have missed them entirely, or at least a few. All these various flashbacks have names such as memory of anguish, sorrow, and kinship, amongst a few others, and they represent what kind of emotion Jin associates with them. Starting with anguish. This memory resurfaces near an old battlefield in which Jin had to cut down not just raiders, but also civilians. Here, Lord Adachi, the guy who got roasted in the beginning of the base game, says a line that kinda encapsulates the entire mindset that pushed Jin away from the way of the samurai. Victories don't have to feel good. While it is true that some victories don't feel good, the samurai here have made that line their modus operandi. Killing civilians? Part of the job. Raising their homes? Just an average Tuesday. The way the samurai clung to that thought process is wholly different than how Jin interpreted that line. Jin used methods he heavily disliked and were simply monstrous, but even then, he made an effort to never let innocents suffer. The moment he first used the wolfsbane poison on the Mongols, he made a mental note that the poison was only going to be used up until the Mongol invasion had been stopped, and he would get rid of it afterwards. The pain he feels knowing he's doing something horrible was never dulled by the teachings of his seniors. In fact, it was this pain that led him to question Lord Shimura's decisions, as they lost countless lives that could have been spared. Unlike Lord Shimura, Jin didn't close his heart to the suffering of others. The following few memories show Kazumasa Sakai's character a lot. In Sorrow, both Jin and his father drink sake together, away from their soldiers. Jin points this out, only to be told that they should not fraternize with their underlings, as they simply are doing their duty, reducing them to nothing but expendable pawns, even though they would give their lives if ordered to do so. Seeing how he is meant to treat his people with such a level of disregard is pretty obviously disheartening to him. Kazumasa is not entirely heartless though, and mentions how Jin's mother would have discussed matters like these with him, and how when she died, it felt like the better part of him died with her. As much as Kazumasa may have wanted that to be somewhat comforting, Jin only experiences more pain, as he cannot even remember the voice of his mother. Both men here are united by the fact that they are missing something in their lives, which made Jin at least feel like he had a connection to his father for once. This is a rather big development for the two, as Kazumasa did not know how to raise a son. He instead, as the game states, raised a samurai. Or at least tried to. He cared for his son, but thought he was weak and an unfit heir to the Sakai clan. In the memory of foreboding, he does not even refute Jin's feelings of inadequacy, thinking that he is a burden to his father during the invasion. Instead, Kazumasa makes sure that Jin's armor is properly fitted and wants Jin to stay near him, saying that one strike is all it takes. He may not be able to properly convey his worry for Jin with words, but he does it through actions. However, in the memory of kinship, things are a bit different. The invasion had now been going on for a while, and Jin had changed. He felt more at ease on the battlefield, having fully embraced the belief that they are saving the island. He even wants to know if they can stay, and Kazumasa is unsure, asking if Jay may want to remain here. Kazumasa acknowledges Jin to be a Sakai after all, after Jin proclaims that he feels more alive on the battlefield. He was about to state something about how their time together had affected him as well, but was cut short by one of their samurai informing them of their upcoming assault. Even here, without anything being openly stated, you can tell that not just Jin had changed, but Kazumasa as well. While Jin grew bolder and closer to the warrior that his father was, Kazumasa had grown more soft-spoken and caring, telling Jin that everything will be fine, even though Jin had expressed no doubts. The distance between them that the death of Jin's mother had left was closing again, which makes it all the more tragic that Kazumasa Sakai died on that very day. The one time where Jin didn't stay by Kazumasa's side was the time that Kazumasa's life was ended. Jin regretted not aiding his father his entire life, and all it took was in fact one strike at the hands of a raider who simply got lucky that Kazumasa broke his legs. That raider being Tenzo. An older man with a horrible taste in fashion whose only character aspect is being grumpy about samurai. I joke, but before some of the major reveals he's basically just an old man shouting at a cloud. Tenzo represents all the raiders with his disdain for the samurai. He has seen the brutality the samurai operate with, the lack of regard for human life they have, and the hypocrisy that they apply to every decision they make. So his wariness is not unfounded after figuring out that the person he saved from the Eagle tribe turned out to be a samurai, as they had not seen one on the island since the invasion 15 years prior. Tenzo and Jin teamed up, although both distrust each other, with Tenzo making it a thing to constantly refer to Jin as Jin from Yarikawa, the fake name Jin gave him, as he obviously does not believe that he is from Yarikawa. Because let's be honest, who would give the location rather than the name of their family or clan? It is like the most surefire way to get people to be suspicious of you. Over the course of the expansion, they both start respecting each other more and more, only for their fragile mutual respect to crumble when Tenzo found out that Jin was the son of the man they called the Butcher of Iki. Tenzo immediately regrets having trusted Jin, as if it was found out that Jin is who he is, both Jin and Tenzo would most likely be executed on the spot. And the sentiment is not completely unwarranted. Imagine you were aiding this one guy who not only participated in the almost successful subjugation of your people, but whose father was so brutal it is said that his bloodlust was so strong that it inhabited the armor of his horse, which drove every horse who was outfitted with it insane. At this point, Tenzo also had a personal interest in keeping the secret, as if it were to come out that Jin Sakai was a Sakai, people would most likely let it slip that Tenzo was the one who killed his father. So, not only would Tenzo be at least shunned by his peers for bringing a Sakai to their hideout, but he would also most likely be hunted by Jin, which, I mean, this man managed to almost single-handedly rout the Mongol invasion on the mainland. Tenzo would not last long. Or not, since that is not just a hypothetical, as you can watch that play out, as during the penultimate battle against the Eagle tribe, Tenzo decided to use his catchphrase like a goddamn Pokemon, knowing very well that the now grown son of the man he killed is somewhere on the battlefield with him. It should be criminal to be this idiotic. But Tenzo can be lucky that Jin is not his father, as Jin had the clarity of mind to see that they have bigger problems at the moment, and can hash this out later after the Eagle tribe is dealt with. And so Tenzo and Jin ride out to face the Eagle and the remnants of her tribe at Sanjo Gorge, the place where Kazumasa's life was extinguished. Here I need to bring up a very important part of the expansion that I left out. That mad shit talking I mentioned in the beginning of this video done by the Eagle isn't actually the Eagle. The voice in his head constantly belittling him was his self-doubt. Every single subconscious fear, paranoia, or guilt he carried were brought forth by the poison. When Jin surveyed the former battlefield upon which the raiders and Clan Sakai once clashed, he remembered all the corpses of those lost on that day. When he followed Tenzo to Funa's hideout, a rage began to well up in his mind, making him wonder how many samurai Tenzo had killed, or how Tenzo may have been the one that sliced the throat of an attendant in his sleep. However, the poison does not only reach outward into the world, but also inward, revealing past regrets such as a vision of Ryozo somberly recounting the words he uttered before he decided to betray Jin, or fearing that his bloodline may be cursed with an insatiable bloodlust. None of these feelings were unknown to Jin, they weren't new to him, they were all simply buried or diminished for various reasons. But this poison, this sacred medicine, forced Jin to confront those buried emotions. And yet there's more. The agitation caused by these hallucinations also put Jin on a direct collision course with the inhabitants of Iki. They, as previously mentioned, see samurai as tyrants, which isn't exactly what Jin believes, but it hammers home the fact that samurai simply do not care about the lives of people and will defend their actions under the veil of the greater good. The constant confrontations made Jin question his father and whether samurai weren't just misguided, but also uncaring to the plight of the common people. And all this questioning of his beliefs came to a climax during the final battle of the expansion. Shortly after engaging the Eagle, who beat my ass so hard I genuinely contemplated not showing the fight at all, a final hallucination is triggered, in which Jin beats Tenzo over the head to save his father from being killed. Here, Jin's father is essentially revealed to be a proto-Ghost of Tsushima.
Roll credits.
He already strayed from the Bushido, taking cruel actions out of necessity, but he still clung to the same honor and tradition that Lord Shimura did. Kazumasa rushed into battle with ease, but did not know what to do with a son who was so very unlike him. So he made him more like himself. In spite of that though, Jin was not simply his father's son. He was also Chiyoko's son, someone with more empathy than Kazumasa. And with all that he had seen and heard from the people of Iki, who had challenged his view of his father as a righteous and good leader, he was finally able to see his father for who he was. A man truly lost in his lust for battle and a butcher with no regard for human life. In my previous video on Ghost of Tsushima, I interpreted Jin's story as one of revenge and how he used that desire for revenge to save his people. And while one can argue about if that is the correct interpretation or not, it is simply my interpretation. So now with the Iki Island expansion not being specifically during the invasion of Tsushima, but able to be played afterwards as well, and thus having to account for the events of the base game to have already transpired, I believe the plot of Iki Island is there to teach Jin to overcome his desire for revenge and to be at peace after having lost not one, but two families. And I cannot end this video without saying how absolutely flabbergasted I am with the density of character moments and developments here. The base game was so comparatively straightforward for me to work with. This though? I expected us to get an answer as to who killed Jin's father. I didn't expect us to be shown a genuinely compelling perspective as to why Tenzo killing his father was not an act of evil, but one of survival. I was overwhelmed with how even smaller side characters such as the young man that goes around Iki Island to gather materials for a house could explain how it must have felt for these people when the samurai came to the island. Because, in case you did not make the connection, both the samurai and the Eagle tribe used terror in their mission to subjugate the island. Both see themselves as some sort of saviors that are doing this for the betterment of the people, but both are just driven by the desire for conquest. Iki Island taught Jin like a teacher would a student, with way too much mental anguish. The man he once saw as someone to live up to, and the people he once saw as nothing but worthless killers, were now no longer what he once believed them to be. He was forced to confront the reality of there being multiple sides to a story. It cost him a tremendous amount of restraint to not only face the man who killed his father, but also to forgive and even understand said man. In suffering the events of the Mongol invasion and the conquest of the Eagle tribe, Jin achieved a kind of ego death, spoken of in Buddhism. In suffering from the Eagle tribe's poison, Jin was finally able to let go of his past and gain a newfound understanding of himself.